Hi guys, Murph here for another NASCAR Heat 5 setup video. Seeing as it's New Hampshire this weekend, why not do New Hampshire? Tough little place to race, flat track, so it's always a bit more throttle control required than the high bank stuff, and a little more patience in terms of getting on the brakes, getting on the throttle. It takes probably a little bit more skill if you ask me. Now I'll have the usual format with a qualifying setup, race and race setup, and a bit of an explanation in there. Here we are starting the qualifying lap, looking for just past that sign there. Get on the brakes, want to hold the middle lane, the second lane, let it drift a bit wide and cut back on the exit. Be careful to manage the oversteer as you go down onto the first lane. Looking for the Coca-Cola board on the right, just brake just past there, carry the brake in, want to start a wee bit higher here. In the third lane, cut back down, apex the exit and drive the car as straight off the corner as you can, and that's a fast quality time, good enough to be 2/10 faster than the AI on the hardest of the difficulties. It's actually something I've found with the flat tracks, so I feel like they need to increase the difficulty. Now for the qualifying setup itself, it's a fair bit looser than the race setup. I'll go into details as to why that's the case when we get into the race setup. But for the quality setup, the main thing is I've gone up on the track bar. I've also gone up on the grill tape to 100%, of course. I've also decreased the brake bias, increased both rear springs a little bit, and decreased the wedge, all in an aid to try and make the car rotate through the corner a lot better. Now I'll go into a bit of a slow lap to show a bit of an explanation as to what I'm doing, what brake markers I'm using, what lines I'm trying to take. And now I'm going to show you a quick couple of things at slow speed, just give you an idea of what you got to try and achieve around here. Now, in terms of turn 1 braking point, I'm looking for this Foxwoods sign. I'm probably braking about now, so just slightly after it, carrying the brake. Now in qualifying, I'm going a wee bit deeper than that, but in race, because as the tyres wear out, I'm tending to enter a brake a bit earlier. Now diving off into turn 1, I'm looking to enter about the middle of the track, basically about here, just above that bottom groove, and you're going to want to diamond the corner. So you want to effectively apex it there, slide the car, let the car drift a bit higher into this third groove, let the car rotate, and once the car rotates, you can start turning back down, get onto the power early. Now one big thing to be careful of is a seam right here between the first groove and the second groove. In an ideal world, I'm not one to actually hit it, because car will get loose and get sideways. But by that stage I'm back full throttle, powering down the back straight, trying to exit the corner with as little steering lock as possible, and carrying as much speed down the straight as I can. Now we're looking for this Coca-Cola sign on the right here. Now I'm going to be braking again just after it, before this 2 sign, but just after the Coke sign. In qualifying, I probably am coming to about here, about where the 2 sign ends for braking. Like turn 1, I just want to brake a bit earlier in the race. Now this corner I tend to take a bit lower. So entry I tend to aim to get onto the second apron where the seam is, and then drift wide, second lane. Carry the speed, let the car rotate round, and then I'm wanting to diamond the car off the corner, little steering lock as possible, potentially even using a wee bit of this apron here, and on to full power, and powering down the straight for a real slow quality lap.
Alright.
Now as for what happens during the race itself, one thing you'll find, I've set the car up to be really tight early on. That's because it's just actually absolutely impossible to build a setup that looks after the rear tyres. So you have to deal with a bit of understeer for the early 10 laps, and then you'll have to deal with some oversteer towards the end of a run. The setup is really good. It's a little quicker over the short run than the AI. The AI will come back to you if you abuse the rear tyres. So you just have to be careful to manage the wheel spin off the corner. If you're really struggling, I suppose you can always turn on the traction control for the driver assist, but for those like me who don't use these driver assists, you're going to have to be very gentle getting on the throttle, coming off the corners, just to manage the wheel spin. The car gets particularly loose coming off a 2 as well, so you just have to manage that. Now, as for the race setup itself, the main things I've changed compared to qualifying is I've increased the wedge a wee bit. I've lowered the rear springs, softened them a wee bit, just to get the car squat a wee bit more off the corner. Decreased the tyre pressures a wee bit. I've also decreased the track bar both sides and decreased the grill tape, of course, to try and obviously so the car doesn't overheat. Well, hope you guys found that helpful and useful. Feel free to do all the usual YouTube stuff, the old like and subscribe. Also hit me up in the comments if there's a track you're struggling with a setup with, or even struggling with the racing line. If you do, let me know. I'll try and do that one as my next video. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed it. As I say, like and subscribe, and we'll catch you for the next one. Ciao!